Hello and welcome to the Wedding Guide podcast. I'm your host, Pete the Celebrant, and we are proudly sponsored by Easy Weddings. Easy Weddings helps thousands of couples nail their big day every year. With their award-winning directory and mobile apps, you can find and book top-rated wedding suppliers, stay on track with their planning tools, or for a more hands-off approach, work with a wedding planner to save you time and money, and it's free. Jump onto easyweddings.com.au to start your stress-free journey up the aisle today. Joining us again as our guest for the episode is Darcy Burch, a wedding planner from Easy Weddings. She's currently planning her own wedding and has an exciting announcement of Easy Weddings' latest creation, the free COVID tracker that can be found on their website. Allow me to introduce to you the very wedding knowledgeable Darcy Burch. Well, hello and welcome to another episode. And thankfully, today, once again, we have Darcy Burch from Easy Weddings. Darcy, how are you doing?
Very good. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me back. Great
to have you back. Now, as we start this podcast, this episode, we just want to let everyone know that currently we are both based in the Victoria COVID bubble, but we are talking Australia-wide. So we understand right now in Victoria, weddings aren't really going ahead how we'd like, but we know that in other states, things are flourishing, things are going great, people are having great weddings, they've got dance floors and DJs and bands, things are awesome. Today, we are going to focus on Easy Weddings' new COVID tracker, helping couples understand all the different changes that are going on and the rules that are guidelines that are taking place all across Australia. And then we're going to touch on some of the frequently asked questions that Darcy has been having with couples. So Darcy, why don't you tell us about this new COVID tracker and how it helps couples?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of, as we mentioned last time, Easy Weddings are kind of the biggest and the best directory across Australia wide. So we thought, why not create this informative hub for our couples and also our clients, being our suppliers across Australia wide, from venues to celebrants to flowers to cakes, everything. So we've created a very simple kind of informative page, or a tracker as we like to call it. So it's got a fantastic visual map of Australia, so you can click on the region that you're specifically looking for, or you can actually see each state and or territory's kind of restrictions side by sides with relation to weddings specifically. There's a whole bunch of frequently asked questions there, and of course an opportunity for you to contact us directly with any kind of specifics. But just as we can imagine, things are changing on a regular basis. Sometimes the updates aren't as specific to weddings as we would hope. They're lumping us into religious gatherings or events as such. So if you want to know kind of the cream of the crop and what's actually happening with our industry being weddings, you can head to www.easyweddings.com.au/COVID, which is the new word of 2020. So super easy, but it's going to be updated constantly, kind of as so we're working hard this morning to update all of the fantastic changes that came about yesterday. Super exciting. As you can imagine, there'll be even more changes after the 8th of November as well. So we really encourage all kind of couples, suppliers, anyone and everyone who's interested in kind of finding out what's currently happening here in Victoria, any state across. You want to see what's happening over in WA, make yourself feel a little bit better like we do here in Victoria. see how much fun they're having on the dance floor with the DJs. It's an opportunity to do so there. So we do hope that everyone finds it as useful as we have so far.
Definitely. It really is an incredible website. What the addition that you've made to the website for couples, it's just incredible. As you said, helps every state. You can go from Victoria, then jump over to South Australia, see all the differences. It's obviously a lot better to be in South Australia at the moment than Victoria for weddings. But really, you've got so much information up there for couples, and it really is hard to keep track of all the different changes going on. So it's fantastic to have all of it in one spot for couples and suppliers as well, because there is a suppliers section, isn't there, Darcy?
There is definitely. So obviously the information is very similar across both parts, but there is something a little bit more specific to our suppliers, in terms of cars. I think that's one that's come up quite a lot. Can I actually rent a classic car or a limo to attend my wedding of 10 people? So things super specifics like that, you should be able to find on our site or in the frequently asked questions area, or if not, you can always contact us, of course, and we can find out for you.
That's great. Well done to the Easy Weddings team. Incredible job. It's up. Please make sure you go and see that. We'll make sure that the link is in the show notes as well, so it's nice and easy for you to find it. But it really is easyweddings.com.au/COVID. Now, Darcy, tell us, for those who maybe didn't catch you on the episode before, what's your specific role at Easy Weddings?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd say go back and watch last episode because it was fantastic.
It was indeed.
Yes, it was. No. So I am our venue and planning manager here at Easy Weddings. So I look after two of our direct to the consumer team. So basically we have two teams as part of the wedding planning team. Who kind of speak directly with our brides and grooms. We've created two kind of tailored services for our couples. So one is our venue finder program. So we learn all about kind of your day, your vision, how many guests you have, the time of year and the style of wedding. And we actually send you recommendations of venues that we think are going to suit your budget and your needs. So it's kind of a pre-vetted list to help you through that researching stage, which couples do find quite overwhelming. We then help you to answer any questions you have about packages and pricing across those venues, and then organise a site inspection for you to go and have a look at that as well. So it's very much a tailored experience for the venue component. Secondary to that, we do have our wedding supplier packages, which we're very fortunate to have Pete the Celebrant as a part of.
Come on.
So we sell supplier packages Australia-wide. So essentially we bundle together a photographer, a videographer, a DJ or a band, and also your celebrant, which we kind of say are the four big ticket items after the venue and kind of the must-have services for any kind of big wedding. So we do all the work there for you, similar to the venue, pair you with like-minded suppliers that are going to fit in well with your style of wedding, your location, your needs, your guest numbers, your chosen venue, everything to possibly think of. In addition to that, you also get a dedicated wedding planner from the Easy Weddings team. So you'll be allocated to one of the team members who will work with you up into the actual wedding day to help you with budgets and run sheets. We can create mood boards, give you styling tips. We can chat about invitation wording. We can point you in the direction of other amazing suppliers not included in the package. So, cakes, flowers, cars, invitations, everything. So you've got someone to guide you through the entire process.
So good. I don't know if you mentioned it before. You're sort of like one of the like the bridesmaid who's there, just that give the advice, like I'm here to help, here's what I know. And I think it's incredible that you're able to help couples with finding like-minded and similar natured people that they're after, because it can be pretty daunting when you're trying to find that dream team for your wedding. And there's just so many out there. And you're trying to find, do I connect with them more? Do I connect with these people more? And once you meet with a couple, you get to know them and you can recommend them, you know what, you're going to get on with this band over here. This photographer, you guys would be perfect. So that's great that couples can use that service with Easy Weddings. Now,
yeah, definitely.
During this stage, you're getting some common questions. Why don't you take us through some of these questions? Why don't we start with talking about other states and territories, and I'll let you take the reins.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we're keeping a close watch, including obviously the reasons we just mentioned on our tracker of all of the other states. So it's very exciting to kind of see how the rest of Australia has kind of opened up over the past 2 or 3 months, so that Victoria can hopefully follow suit over the next few weeks. So obviously South Australia is kind of the benchmark in conjunction with WA, Darwin, and also Tasmania. So they kind of have set the bar. Their, social distancing is still in place. and square meterage kind of capacity limits. But apart from that, weddings are almost normal, which is fantastic. So, you know, whilst in keeping with COVID normal kind of practices and restrictions, they are able to celebrate their day pretty much in the exact way that they'd envisioned it. So that's what we're hopefully working towards. Great news for obviously Queensland and New South Wales at the moment. So Queensland had recently moved to their 40 guest limit on the dance floor, which is, you know, a massive step up from none.
Yeah.
And then from there in December, it's actually the full guest list. So December 1st, you can have your entire guest list on the dance floor. So that's super exciting and something that I think couples are dying for. So it's great to have kind of an idea and a date to work towards. Similar in New South Wales, they did up the capacity, maximum capacity for weddings to 300, still based on a 1 per 4 square metre rules, but I think that's something that is constantly being reviewed. And I think the government are working hard up in New South Wales to kind of work with the wedding industry and some, I guess, the allies across the industry to understand how our industry works and how we can kind of best practice weddings in the safest way possible. So we've all got some wonderful ideas, and, you know, please know that we are working really hard with the Victorian government here in Melbourne as well, and partnering with a lot of similar industry bodies to kind of get the message across on how we plan to host weddings in a safe manner moving forward.
Yeah, which is great. I think that question's on everyone's mind is, you know, if you can have the wedding, it's still, how do we do this? So it is all above board. Everyone's meeting the guidelines. Everyone feels safe. And it's not this sort of question of like, oh, is this okay? Someone going to come and check on us? Like, no. Everyone's got the plans in place. We're all sorted. All the T's are crossed, I's are dotted.
Definitely.
So tell us, because things are happening different in each state. I know that a big one comes, obviously you get to know couples, they tell you the type of wedding they want. So the vision, but then also you've also got the understanding of the budget they've got. Take us through with that.
Yeah, sure. So obviously what we're seeing a lot of at the moment is...
Sorry, Darcy, I'm going to stop. I'm going to pause you there. Girls, I'm in a conversation right now. It's not the time. Go for it. So I'll I can't remember what. I'll let you go, and I'll just edit that in. Go.
Cool. Sounds good. So what we're finding is, I guess, a lot of couples have had to potentially cancel or postpone international weddings or potentially a destination wedding. So they're trying to essentially recreate what they were planning for here in Australia. So a good friend of mine was planning to get married at Lake Como in Italy. It was going to be absolutely amazing. I was pretty much waiting for my call up to be bridesmaid. So obviously, you know, we're kind of going through the process to help her kind of recreate what she likes here in Australia. So realistically, you're not going to get everything that you kind of envisioned. And I think that there needs to be a bit of an understanding of flexibility around this as well. But I guess the types of questions that you will hear from our wedding planners and our venue finders is trying to really get to the crux of what you like, or what you're really kind of invested in about that, say, Lake Como wedding as an example. So is it the beautiful Italian food? Is it the pizzas? Is it the pasta? Because 100% we can do that. You know, Zonzo Estate do an amazing Italian affair.
Yes, they do.
They do, yes. You know, for my girlfriend, it was all about the architecture and the look, and that just kind of something that you can't get here in Australia. So a great compromise for her is, some people aren't aware of, there's a gorgeous venue called Site 3A, which is run by Truffle Duck, which is a regional catering company down in the Geelong Bellarine Peninsula. So it's this stunning kind of old, I don't even know, I'm not very good with, you know, historic words and things like that, but it's almost like a ruins, very kind of a castle mansion. You can have hanging chandeliers and really recreate that kind of, you know, picturesque wedding with that amazing architecture, and something that people would say, is that wedding in Australia? That doesn't look like it's in Australia. But in fact, it's actually down in our backyard in Geelong. So it's kind of helping us to understand, you know, what was the most important part of that wedding setup for you, and how can we do our best to recreate that here in Australia? Another one that we get quite often is a Hampton style wedding. So to us, that's, that kind of luxe. Everything's white, everything's, it's very outdoors, similar to, I guess, realistically where it comes from is Gossip Girl and any of those New York style shows where they head off to the Hamptons for the summer. So that can easily be recreated here. It is a little bit difficult here in Melbourne, just given the weather. You do need to be flexible that in the event that can't happen on the day, what's the indoor backup and how can we do our best to recreate that in an indoor space. But our recommendation to kind of get that Hamptons feel would of course be Queensland, Byron Bay region. So obviously in the coming months when borders reopen, that's an opportunity to go up and have a look at different sites. But again, tell us what it is about that Hamptons wedding. Is it just the style of the furniture? Is it the fact that everything's green and white and clean and crisp? Is it the fact that it's outdoors and there's festoon lights and everyone's kind of in an intimate gathering space? So tell us what it is exactly about that wedding. Is it the sharing style affair? Is it the beautiful kind of glassware and crystal chandeliers and things like that? Like, what is it that is most important to you? And we can do our best to help you recreate that here with, of course, flexibility.
Sure.
The other one that I think we should probably mention is Marquee Weddings. So that's obviously something that's really popular. So there's some fantastic companies who already offer a marquee wedding whereby everything's kind of included for you. So that certainly comes at a price point. So you've got Blake's Feast who run marquees within the Royal Botanical Gardens. You've also got the Atlantic Group who run their marquee at the Gardens House in the Royal Botanical Gardens. You've also got the amazing Acacia Ridge who have their marquee out in the Yarra Valley. And then obviously you have the ability to hire an exclusive estate or a private homestead or Airbnb and place the marquee there of your choice. So it is certainly on trend and something that a lot of couples are leaning towards, being that kind of outdoor weddings are going to be the new norm, and potentially there might be a little bit more flexibility on an open air marquee than an indoor venue. So things to consider there is the venues that I just mentioned that already have a marquee structure, fantastic. Crown's another opportunity there, obviously in the heart of Melbourne CBD, and everything's already there for you. I guess the thing to consider that we often chat to couples about is, even if you have a friend of a friend whose partner has a farm and you're able to use that space complimentary, which is fantastic. In terms of the logistics behind hiring a marquee and having that structure set up, placing flooring in the marquee, because obviously depending on the weather in the lead up to the day, it could be quite dry or even quite wet. So flooring is something that most couples need to consider. Things that you don't even you don't even kind of come to front of mind. So the actual tables, the chairs, the linen, the napkins, the forks, the knives, the spoons, the glassware. So all of that, realistically, you're starting from scratch. You've found a piece of land that you want to get married on, and now you've got to bring everything to that. Let's say the homestead is a 15-20 minute walk. You're going to need to bring portable toilets. Once it's dark, have you actually organised for outdoor lighting to guide the way to those toilets? Has the caterer thought about a cool room? What if it's too hot? Do we have air conditioning? What if it's too cold? Do we have a fire or heating? Just things like that. I guess we're here to help you talk through all of those logistics and point you in the best direction based on your requirements and, of course, your budget, which certainly does come into play when you're looking for something quite extravagant in reality. The other one that we're seeing quite often is food truck weddings. So obviously there's an appeal again for an outdoor wedding and kind of much more of a relaxed environment. So there's certainly something that are absolutely doable, but something to consider there is, let's say you go to your local park or reserve and you hire out an area from your local council for say $700, $800, $900. Fantastic. Same kind of scenario there with the marquee. Not only do you need to pay the food truck to come to the venue or the area that you've chosen, where are your guests going to sit? Is there enough bins? Where are the local toilets? What happens if it rains? Once it gets dark, do we have lighting? Have we considered, for all of the dietaries, if you've only got one food truck and they don't have a vegetarian option, do we need to have a backup? What are we going to do about drinks? How are we going to chill those drinks? So I guess anyone that's kind of thinking of going down that DIY route or a marquee route, or just kind of want help in terms of how to execute that vision here in Australia rather than overseas in a destination location, we're certainly here to help and kind of educate you and talk through all of those motions involved and establish what's going to be the most kind of beneficial plan based on your, must-haves, and of course versus that budget that you're willing to spend.
Yeah. So you can definitely still have that destination style wedding. However, talking to you will really help couples understand the different options that they need to weigh up. You can have that Lake Como wedding, and you're going to help them discover, why do you want that style of wedding? Like you said, is it the food? Is it the architecture? And then currently with outdoor weddings, I know right now in Victoria, that's all we can have, but all across Australia, outdoor weddings are fantastic. But there are also some other things that you might need to think of that if you were to choose a venue that already had these things set up, you wouldn't need to. And again, you're looking at budget versus vision. So I guess an important thing to maybe talk about is a DIY wedding is not necessarily cheaper, even though you're putting in or willing to put in more effort. What would you say to that?
Most definitely. And that's something that we chat to brides about brides and grooms, or couples in general. That's what we chat to them about on a regular basis. So DIY weddings, we do attract a lot of DIY couples to our site, being that it is Easy Weddings, and we are here to create an easy experience across the wedding planning journey. So DIY in terms of creating your own invitations, or potentially I have a lot of couples who mention that they're happy to go to the flower market and do their own bouquets, which is absolutely awesome. But I guess, have you considered, what time you'll be up in the morning on the day of your wedding in order to do so? If you do it on the Friday, are they going to be fresh enough, depending on the type of flowers that you've chosen? So there's a lot of kind of logistics and operational things to consider with a DIY wedding. And similar to kind of what I discussed, you might find that you're able to create this amazing invitation. But in terms of actually going to Officeworks and having it printed and getting all the different types of textures and papers, it might actually end up costing you more, even though you've got this absolutely personalized product and something that you can be extremely proud of. Not only have you spent, say, 10, 12 hours of your time creating it, but I guess being that these suppliers, for example, using stationery as an example, they have access to wholesale discounts with their suppliers in order to print in bulk. Yeah. So sometimes what we think we might actually be able to do cheaper ourselves, it's probably worth investigating the opportunity with a supplier first, as to kind of weigh up the different options. But yeah, there is a lot more to think about. We do look after quite a number of DIY wedding venues, whereby you're essentially hiring the estate for exclusive use for, the stunning chapel for the ceremony, the barn for the reception, and the use of the estate for potentially accommodation and photos. But I guess the first thing that I'd say to you there is you're essentially paying two entities. So whereby the person who owns the estate, they obviously need to take their cut for the day, and then the caterer coming on site, it needs to be financially viable for them as well. So obviously when you're already paying two entities, naturally that dollar figure is going to come up slightly higher than if one venue who already own the tables and chairs that are at their venue, they already have the cool room, they already have the fryers, they're not having to bring anything on site. Naturally, that is going to be much more cost effective. It's not saying that it's not doable, but we're just kind of chatting about open-mindedness and kind of, approaching the planning stage with a bit of flexibility, so that we can best guide you as to what's going to be the most suitable option for you as a couple.
Yep. I love in Australia that we're big on DIY, We can build the patio ourselves. We can do that. No worries. And of course we can organize our own weddings. Most people get married once, and it is a big event putting it together. And it's incredibly helpful to have someone like you, Darcy, to talk through all these different options with. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the different supply packages and that venue finder program? Take us in a little bit more depth. How does it work? What's the process?
Sure. Can't seem to speak today. Mustn't have had enough coffee yet. So venue finder, I'll talk about this one first, as it's usually the first step of the program. So often we actually find couples who inquire about a supplier package, but they haven't actually found their venue first. So we usually pass them back over to the venue finding team to kind of start that process before we get into the nitty gritty. Because as you can probably imagine, Pete, it's very hard to pair someone with the most suitable photographer when we don't even have an understanding of how that day will pan out. So realistically, if I pair you with a photographer of choice based on what we've kind of discussed, and we are, in my head, I'm picturing, you know, a luxe modern hotel wedding, and then you end up choosing a beach venue, that photographer might not be kind of best suited to the style of wedding that you've committed to. So it's always good to kind of, there is a step-by-step process. There's certainly people that do it another way around, and that's totally fine. But what you'll find there is they might have committed to, say, an Erin and Tara, and they've dreamed about having them shoot their wedding for the rest of their entire lives. So they will actually find a venue to fit in with the Erin and Tara style of photography that they've wanted or dreamed about. They're not going to go completely left of field. It's the same as if you want to wear a princess ball gown, you're probably not going to get married on a beach with an enormous train that's going to drag through the sand and water. So there's kind of a, I don't know what the word is, symptomatic or systematic probably is the right word, way of looking at wedding planning. So we're kind of here to help you through that process. So pretty much the first question we ask is, where are you at in the wedding planning process? Have you started looking at venues yet? Do you have an idea of what you're after? Have you started looking at suppliers yet? So straight away we can gauge where you are in the planning process and how we can best be of help to you. So with the Venue Finder program, we work on behalf of a range of venues across Australia wide. So basically, if I had an inquiry come through and they said, you know, we're getting married at, oh goodness me, we're getting married in the Sydney CBD. We've got 120 guests and we've got a budget of 25,000. We work with an amazing range of venues across Sydney. So we can go from anything from a Pier 1 in terms of a hotel waterfront style venue, right through to a Gunners Barracks, which is a historic kind of outdoor venue. We can go over to Balgenie Farm for that rustic barn feel. We can then take it right back to a 55 George's rooftop at the Ridges Sydney Harbour. So you're getting that real kind of party vibe, maybe more of a cocktail style. So naturally, based on the venue that you potentially inquire with, or you come to us with an idea of what you're after, we can then best pair you with venues of choice. So once we've had that initial conversation to gain further insight into you as a couple and what you're planning for a big day, we would then put together a short list of anywhere between, say, 3 to 5 venues that we think are going to be a perfect fit. We'd send you some basic information on those venues for you to have a look over with your partner and discuss. You'd then come back to us with kind of, you know, these are my top 2 or my top 3. We'd then delve in even further, chat about the packages and pricing, what that includes, kind of comparing one venue to another in terms of how that's going to fit in with your budget. We then move to the stage of checking availability and dates and things like that, and also organising a time for you to go out and view the venue in person, because we do find that that's quite important. Obviously, from a time-sensitive perspective, there are some couples here in Victoria, as an example, who have chosen to book a venue via Zoom, being that they've had the virtual tour and they're confident with the information that they have that's the right venue choice. But similar to purchasing a home or a rental property, it's always good to see something in person to really resonate. And I also recommend seeing more than one venue, just so that you have something to compare it to. Like, I don't think many people walk into the first house they've viewed and buy it. It's very much the same as a wedding venue. It's always good to maybe visit 2 to 3 venues, so that you walk into the third one and you go, no, I definitely want the one we've just come from. It's cemented the decision for me, because I find if you go for one venue that you've got your heart set on, you go to it, you love it, but you're still not ready to commit because you're constantly thinking, what if, what else is out there? So it's always good to kind of visit like-minded venues, and that's where we come into play, rather than you having to search for like-minded venues. We'll just hand them to you on a silver platter.
Is there a golden number, or how many venues do you normally hand a couple to say, hey, check these out? Is it 3? Is it 5? Like, what are your thoughts?
It's probably about 5, especially in the CBD areas, being that we've got such a vast portfolio to work within. For some of the more specific regions, say the Yarra Valley or the Mornington Peninsula, it's probably 3 or 4, being that naturally venues in the Yarra Valley are of a similar style. They are a rustic winery. So naturally they fit into 2 or 3 different price points. So depending on where you sit, we're going to send you maybe 2 or 3, sometimes 4 options that are going to fit perfectly within the requirements you've given us.
Yeah. Great. So they go you send them to the venue program finder, and then, so they find that venue, they're happy with it. What's next?
Sure. So at that point of site inspection, you've obviously met with the wedding coordinator, the sales manager, or someone at the actual venue themselves. So naturally you're in contact with the venue directly. So normally they'd be in touch after that site inspection, kind of as a 3-way chat with a proposal, a contract, or a tentative hold. So we're kind of there in that discussion to, almost back you in those negotiations or help you to understand some of the questions the venue might have for you. So you've always got that expert advice or that guide here to help you along the whole process. But the physical booking and the contract negotiations would be directly through the couple and the venue, being that that's obviously the business that you've chosen to book for your wedding. But we're always here kind of in the background, kept in the loop to answer any questions. Once it's all locked in, our venue finders are, of course, in touch to say, it was amazing working with you. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see how it all pans out. Please feel free to stay in contact. But that's, of course, an opportune time for you to start talking to our wedding planning team, who will produce our wedding supplier packages. So most of the time, a lot of our couples will then move over to the venue. So move from the venue finder program over to our supplier packages program, even if it's just for initial conversation, because naturally once you've secured that venue, you're then starting to think, okay, do we need a photographer? Do we also need a videographer? We're now having the ceremony on site at the venue. So I need to find a celebrant who's available on our chosen date. So some of these things that come up kind of naturally after that venue kind of item has been ticked off the list, we're then here to chat to you about what you need. And we pretty much put together a proposal for you at the time of that inquiry so that you can see exactly what you're up for dollars wise and those inclusions. And then from there, because you've already committed to a certain amount on your budget for the venue, you can then commit a certain amount of that budget to the kind of 4 essential supplies that I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
And then you know exactly what you're up for in terms of dress shopping, flowers, cake, and kind of the rest of it that brings it all together. So that's kind of how the process works. As you can imagine, some couples just choose to use the venue finder program and find suppliers of their choice, or some couples actually book their venue and then come to us for a supplier package. So there's no mandatory need to come via both programs. You can pretty much come to us at any point of the planning process and we'll direct you to whichever program is going to be most suitable for you. I guess the biggest question that we get is, do these programs cost anything? I guess the word program or package insinuates that there's a cost or a service fee. So the fantastic news is there is no cost for either of these services. They are simply an additional kind of revenue stream and a way to bring business to the amazing venues and suppliers who list on our Easy Weddings site. Yeah,
it's great. I like it because for me, and I'm sure for other couples, it really speaks of your purpose is to make, it's in the name, Easy Weddings. It's really to help couples book the wedding they want. And I know it's incredibly important to them, to helping understand, or really getting someone to understand the day they want and then to achieve that goal.
Definitely.
Now let's talk about, as we sort of wrap up, other states that are going ahead with weddings in that. What are we looking at? What do we know of bookings currently going in other states? I know that there are some couples who are still a little hesitant at this stage. And what would you say to them?
Definitely. So we are seeing a lot of couples that we may have spoken to previously in the past. We might have helped them find their venue, but they unfortunately had to postpone given the fact that their family were located international or even just interstate. So that has certainly put a halt on a number of weddings. So New South Wales is probably the biggest wedding market in Australia. So yes, they are having weddings kind of happening again over the last 3 months, which is fantastic, but there is still kind of a backlog of couples who haven't celebrated their big day yet. Maybe they postponed into 2022, or they're waiting for some further clarity around dance floors, interstate border travel, or international travel for friends and family. So for that reason, as you can imagine, there is a backlog of kind of clients who are waiting to book their dream venue or potentially have a tentative hold on a date. So what I would suggest is, naturally we're about to come into what we call proposal season. So for anyone who's not aware, January and February is kind of the biggest 2 months of the year in terms of clients getting engaged and wanting to start to book their venue. So naturally, as we approach this season, we already understand that it's going to be busy, but given everything that's taken place in 2020 Australia-wide, we're naturally going to see, and I think we spoke to this last time in terms of statistics, Pete, that there's going to be a huge demand and an increase in, I guess, Saturday nights and in-demand dates and peak dates. So again, it's just approaching your wedding planning process with a bit of flexibility. The good news is that, you know, a Saturday night wedding at your dream wedding venue might not be achievable based on your budget. However, we could potentially achieve that and more for you on a Thursday night. So are you willing to be flexible in order to achieve the vision? So there's certainly ways around everything. And I guess that's where we come in to help you find that curveball or that different route that you can take in order to achieve what you've always wanted. Yeah.
I think those Thursday weddings, well, like Friday's pretty common, but particularly those Thursdays are going to grow and increase. And I think it will become more common for people to have possibly, you know, earlier Saturday or earlier Friday weddings, because, you know, weddings will increase and suppliers are doing their best to work with couples who are, you know, postponing and going, well, I can't do it that sort of 3 or 4 o'clock on a Saturday, but I could do it at a 12 or a 1 o'clock. And it's going to be at least for, you know, a short while. Weddings won't look exactly the same, and who knows how they'll change for the long term. But definitely, I know from my couples where we, as a supplier, we're doing everything we can to make sure our couples are looked after, and looking at alternatives, going, hey, if we can't do it on this, can we try for this different day or this different time? And I think people are going to be so excited just to get back to doing weddings and just have this form of celebration, particularly after, you know, the year that we've had. And no one's going to care whether it's a Thursday at 6 a.m. If they're there to celebrate, it's going to be a great day. Actually, I would probably care if it was 6 a.m. No one's going to do that anyway. But getting back to just celebrating. And I think that's really the key point. And celebrating what people have found in each other and the marriage that they're starting, which is the whole point of weddings.
Definitely.
Darcy, is there anything else you would like to say to couples? Any advice before we wrap up?
Sure. So obviously here in Victoria specifically, we've just had an announcement yesterday that we can now have up to 10 people plus the celebrant and 1 photographer, which is a fantastic step in the right direction. We're hoping that it will get to the 20 or the 50 in the next couple of weeks or months potentially, as we head into 2021. But take advantage of some of the amazing kind of packages that have been put together by industry bodies and some suppliers and venues. Off the top of my head, I know that the Terrace Royal Botanical Gardens are doing some amazing mini or micro wedding packages. Camp David Farm out in the Dalesford area doing the same. Our good friends, one of our venues, the Metropolis, is doing mini wedding packages or micro wedding packages. The George Ballroom and also Alto Event Space, who are run by the same business, Damn Fine Food. So there is some amazing opportunities to have, you know, a gorgeous wedding for 20 people, the celebrants included, a bouquet for the couples included, a small kind of celebration cake, and potentially some canapes and drinks afterwards, just to kind of celebrate the fact that you've legally gotten married. And then we can talk about the reception if and when at another date. So you can still have that amazing day. It doesn't have to be a registry office wedding. It doesn't have to be out in a council park. We will get to a point very shortly that we can actually have weddings inside a venue once again. And some of them are coming up with incredible packages to really suit the needs of couples right now. So I'd certainly recommend to take advantage of them.
Yep. Fantastic. Darcy, Darcy, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us your wedding wisdom and your insights that you've got from all across Australia. Please, everyone, go and check out the page, the COVID page on easyweddings.com, the COVID tracker. It will really help you no matter what state you're in, no matter if you're a couple or a supplier. It's an incredible page on the website. Go and check that out. Darcy, thank you. Everyone, have an incredible day. Stay safe. And we look forward to having that wedding. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cause no